Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. I think it's going to get interesting with the news week this week, the cycle.
Oh, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But first, I wanted to just take a moment, Bill, just to tip my hat to Ozzy Osbourne. I was not a fan of Black Sabbath. I saw them in concert way back when I was just a child, newly married, 1972. And I had front row seats, and they literally, I think they made my nose bleed. They were so, my wife and I at one point, we looked at each other and kind of got up and snuck out of the place because it was just too close. Not that it was a terrible concert. It's just, it was like we were sitting on the speakers.
Loud.
Yeah, exactly. And that was back in, like I said, Hartford, Connecticut, 1972. But, I didn't know much about the guy in the beginning, only the stories about biting the head off the bat and stuff like that, which I thought was disgusting. And you told me, you explained it finally. And I believe that I had heard that before, but it gets caught up in that myth. What did you hear?
Well, the guy that I heard it from, I've known for, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And, he worked in L.A. He worked for the record label.
Yeah.
And, he was at radio stations, too. So, but either way, he explained the story. Now, I don't always believe everything he says. But here's the deal is, he said that, the crazy bastard, he bit off the head of a bat. Well, it turns out, from what I'm hearing from him and everybody else that put the story together, that Ozzy thought it was actually a fake bat, a rubber bat, and went and grabbed it, because he was, look, the guy he was a showman. He was a publicity hound. And, you say, he's the Prince of Darkness. Well, he assumed that role, and it was a persona that he projected. Yeah, he was a little bit wild, a little bit crazy, but you hear about the guy, he was a very human type person that cared about people, if you know about all his stories and even saw the stuff on TV. But he grabbed what he thought was,
a toy.
A rubber bat. A toy. Yeah. He goes, I'll bite the head off of that and spit it out. And no.
What happened to him afterwards? You told me that
yeah, he had to go through all kinds of detox stuff and everything.
You probably had to get rabies shots and stuff like that.
So now, again, I wasn't there firsthand. But what I'm doing is I'm relying on, firsthand sources that were around the area, but it made for a good story to build up and publicize, because here's this crazy guy that really, when you look at rock today, what was heavy metal back then, was kind of mainstream today, but he defined it. He really invented it.
Yeah,
so
probably
he's the godfather of that.
He probably had all sorts of things thrown at him when he was on the stage, toys and rubber ducks and all this stuff. And he probably, like you said, picked one up. He thought it was a toy and then realized, oops, what have I done?
Well, he was truthful and honest. He lamented one time about, and I won't go into the graphic details, but he lamented one time, about when you're on stage, and if you got a weak bladder, you got to go to the bathroom. What do? And he's sitting there, you're sweating up on stage, but I'll just leave it at this. Who's going to know what you did on stage? The show goes on.
Hey, everyone has their own routine. That I would probably sneak off the stage.
Yeah. Hey, you guys do an instrumental solo?
I was going to say that. Do a long bridge. I'm going inside for a second. Anyway, leave it to you to remember that part of the story. Anyway, lot of stuff happening in the news this morning. And by the way, again, condolences to the family. They seem like a loving family. I mean, Jack and he seems like a good kid, and Sharon is somebody who has been by his side for years, for decades. And so
now I'll tell you my personal thoughts, and I'll leave it on that. Is that he did that show, his farewell show on the 25th. Was it? It was in July or whatever
it was in July.
Or July 5th, I think. Either way, whatever the date was, he did that farewell show. Now, he and Sharon had talked about once about going with dignity. That's, you basically, you do a dignified suicide. You can't do that legally in the United States. It depends on what your moral and religious beliefs are. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. But, I thought about it. He had Parkinson's. And if you listen to the concert and they extrapolated the voice, he might have looked good, sitting there in that chair, and they say he put on a hell of a show, but I heard the voice tracks and I was going like, he was struggling, he was doing his best. And I'll just leave it at this. I think that he did everything on his own terms. He left on his own terms with dignity. Death by dignity is what I'm going to say.
Well,
and that's my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that. It's sad.
Well, he died at home with his family in the morning, and
he's not the only rock singer who has had a farewell concert recently and looked kind of tough. I saw Jeff Lynne and ELO, and Jeff Lynne, who is, I think, a year and a half older than Ozzy. He was in a similar situation. He had to be helped out onto the stage, and they had to literally kind of place him on a seat in the front, so he could sing. And this is a guy who, if you know Jeff Lynne, he's been always with a guitar in hand and a participant. Well, he couldn't play. He had a broken left hand, so he couldn't play the guitar. And if you heard his voice, it wasn't the Jeff Lynne of years past. So, and it was his last concert too. So,
look at Mike Love with the Beach Boys. They rolled him out onto the stage, and he can't. And I'm not making fun of him, but he's holding on.
I saw him at the concert over was it 4th of July, and in Washington, and they came out. And, the rest of the group sounds great because you're all young, strong, current musicians. Yeah, and they all sound great. But he was doing the lead part, and like you said, he didn't have the strength in his voice anymore.
It goes, and you don't know when it's going to go. That can happen to you or to me. It could happen when we're 80. It could happen when we're 90. It can happen when you're 58 or 55.
Yeah.
When it happens, it happens. What's sad, for that, we get these people that they represent a generation. They're your icons.
Yeah.
And when they die, what does that do to
you? Never want to
psyche?
see him. You never want to see him in this situation because it scares you as a fan, because all of a sudden you realize that something that has been so much a part of your life. Yeah, well, yeah, it reminds you of your mortality too. But anyway, my suggestion is to enjoy every day, right? Just to be happy that you're here and hope for tomorrow.
Well, you don't hope for tomorrow. You plan tomorrow. And
I hope for tomorrow, Bill. There's no guarantees.
No guarantees in anything.
Yeah. I wanted to point out before I looked at my clock, and my clock says, we got to move along, guys. I want to play this long cut. It's from President Trump. He did one of his impromptu press conferences in the Oval Office. He had the president of the Philippines with him. God bless him. The guy, I don't know the guy. He's Ferdinand Marcos's son, who is now the president. Nothing like keeping it all in the family. But, by the way, his name is Ferdinand Marcos Jr., I think. But anyway, who goes by the nickname of Bong Bong, which I think is always...
that's it. What you up to, Bong Bong?
You never do it. Don't say it the wrong way. You may end up in jail for a few years. But
I'm smoking, man.
Anyway, President Trump was asked about the Epstein case. Apparently, they're going to get Ghislaine Maxwell to testify in front of Congress. They have encouraged it, and they're going to do it. And they asked whether President Trump liked the idea, and he said, "Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but I think you guys are following the wrong story." And then I want you to hear what he talks about and how he talks about it. And we can talk about it in a few minutes.
I didn't know that they were going to do it. I don't really follow that too much. It's sort of a witch hunt, just a continuation of the witch hunt. The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country, and 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. I know nothing about the other, but I think it's appropriate that they do go.
May I ask you about that, Mr. President?
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper. The whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up. They came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they look. He's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill. Hillary Clinton and her group, the Democrats, spent $12 million to Christopher Steele to write up a report that was a total fake report. Took 2 years to figure that out, but it came out that it was a total fake report. It was made up fiction. And they used that. Now, the one thing they weren't able to do was to, and probably the only thing I respect about the press in years is the press refused to write it before the election. They refused to put it in. The Steele report was a disaster. All lies, all fabrication, all admitted, and admitted fraud. She paid $12 million, and the Democrats, for that report to a wise guy named Christopher Steele. He wrote a phony report, and they wanted to get that report in before the election. And I'll tell you what, I talk about all the time, the fake news, how bad it is. But in this case, they wouldn't do it. They saw it, they read it, and they said, we don't believe it. And it was only after, substantially, like a month and a half after the election, that it got printed, and it was a big wisp. It was just like a bang of nothing, because the election had ended. If that report had gotten published by the New York Times or somebody, and I respect the Times for maybe only this, because they're crooked as you can be. They're a terrible paper, a crooked, corrupt paper. But for this one moment, they said, this is bullshit, we can't put this in. And neither could any other paper. Wall Street Journal's a lousy paper, very, very dishonest paper. As you see, I'm suing them for a lot of money because they do things very badly. It's got a nice name, but it's really, in my opinion, it's a terrible paper, and it can be corrupt. But just so you know, they didn't take the Steele report. It was the dossier. Remember the famous dossier? I called it the fake news dossier. The news wouldn't publish it. And I'm amazed. They had 2.5 months. It was finished 2.5 months. That was supposed to be what was going to happen. And it got published a couple of months after the election. And frankly, nobody cared too much about it. But that was a big thing. No, we caught Hillary Clinton. We caught Barack Hussein Obama. They're the ones. And then you have many, many people under them. Susan Rice. They're all there. The names are all there. And I guess they figured they're going to put this in classified information and nobody will ever see it again. But it doesn't work that way. And it's the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever read. So you ought to take a look at that and stop talking about nonsense, because this is big stuff. Never has a thing like this happened in the history of our country. And by the way, it morphed into the 2020 race. And the 2020 race was rigged, and it was a rigged election. And because it was rigged, we have millions of people in our country. We had inflation. We solved the inflation problem. But millions and millions of people came into our country because of that. And people that shouldn't have been, people from gangs and from jails and from mental institutions, people that we don't want in our country, and people that we're getting out, dangerous people. 11,888 murderers, many of them 50%, more than 50%, murdered more than one person. I hate to say this with such a distinguished guest, but, they asked me a question. I got to answer the question. No, Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group. And they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
Okay, that's basically what he had to say in his impromptu press conference. And to me, that was the gauntlet being thrown down. That was it. It was like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. If you ever doubted as to whether anything is going to happen with this thing, he's going to make it happen. Whether the media tries to avoid it or not.
They're trying hard.
Yeah, they are, Bill, but I don't see it happening.
Obama came out, and he is profusely denying it. It's made up, all this stuff. But he's going to have to get his denying pen out there, or voice even more tuned up, because Tulsi is going to drop another bomb today.
Yeah, I got
more pages.
I got her. She actually was on 2 shows yesterday. She was on with Laura Trump and was on with Rob Schmidt. And she defended herself. First of all, I should read the statement that Obama issued, because some people may not know what he put out. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of the White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction, Obama's office said. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in the 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then-Chairman Marco Rubio. Understand something. They're doubling down on this Russia nonsense. That's what Obama's doing. And it's the only thing he can do. He's got to say, no, that's accurate. That was honest. That was a truthful, factual thing, even though it's a lie. And they've got all the documentation now. The only thing that Obama can do to defend himself is to make it sound like what he had was factual. Amazing stuff. But you were talking about Tulsi, and she was on with Laura Trump. Yeah. And listen to what she said.
from former President Obama there. He's saying that none of this makes any sense, that this is a distraction. What do you say to that?
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week and the documents that we will be releasing later this week that point to the undeniable fact that you laid out in your introduction to this segment, is that the intelligence community had one assessment, that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day. The same assessment was made after Donald Trump was elected by the American people as president in 2016, defeating Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't until after that pulled President's Daily Brief document that you referenced that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, and President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election. So this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media. None of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election, that completely contradicted those assessments that had come previously. The second thing I want to address that's very important, Laura, is that you in the clip that you played, you saw John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey stated with high confidence this January intelligence community assessment that they drafted at the direction of President Obama. The fact is that they used already discredited information like the Steele dossier. They knew it was discredited at that time, yet they used it as a source for this document that they claim to have high confidence in. They used intelligence that some of these intelligence community professionals rejected previously because of the lack of credibility and the lack of the ability to vet with any kind of confidence whether or not that information or intelligence was accurate and could be used for an assessment. There's a long laundry list of facts and intelligence reporting that directly contradict the statement coming from President Obama's office and those who are trying to deflect away from what actually happened, which was after Donald Trump was elected, led by President Obama, there was an effort to create a document that would serve as a foundation for what would be a years-long coup against President Trump, therefore trying to subvert the will of the American people who sent him to the White House in 2016.
I know you have a lot to talk about, but I'm going to ask you to just hold on for 1 second so we can do our commercial break, because I don't want to interrupt your thought. I know it's going to be thoughtful, and I don't want to interrupt. So let's do a little pause here to like and share the show. And also, if you want to contact us, remember it's mail@jimandbill.com, mail@jimandbill.com.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. So you just heard Tulsi come back and give her explanation, her response to Obama's statement, essentially saying, hey, we've got the paperwork here with your signatures on it. You can scream all you want, but we got the facts. What are your thoughts, Bill?
Well, no, I agree with that. And I'm glad that she's doing it, and she's doing it now. Unlike Congress that's taking a day off early to be gone until September, this is going to be in it's a couple of documents, or several documents that she's releasing, and I wouldn't be so sure that she wouldn't have some more in her arsenal. She's like feeding a baby one spoonful at a time to sit there and let you, kind of get the taste and get used to it, but she's got signatures, because Obama was sitting there going, It still doesn't change the fact that the story is true. Well, no, actually,
It does.
It does. So I think the proof is going to be in the pudding that now, if she, for some reason, all of a sudden didn't release things, that would make me scratch my head and go, what the hell's up? But if
she said they're going to release him this week.
Today?
Yeah, so I would sit back, relax, get your popcorn, and enjoy the show because she's got more coming. She was on with Rob Schmidt yesterday and last night, and here's what she said on that show.
We will be releasing further documents tomorrow that will refute that statement, and I would go back and point to, and we will be pulling a whole host of statements that were made by the Obama administration, by Hillary Clinton, by senior Democrat officials, by their friends in the media that state over and over again after this January 2017 manufactured intelligence document was created that repeat the narrative. And I'm looking at my notes here. New York Times says Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in the election. Obama's CIA Director John Brennan says there is strong consensus among us to support the CIA claim Russian hackers aided Donald Trump's election. Hillary Clinton said, I would be president if not for the Russian hackers supporting Donald Trump. So there is a vast body of evidence and intelligence that debunks and refutes this statement you've just read and others coming from some of the Democrat leaders in Congress today.
So what I just heard is that we're going to release it in some stages today and more. And Obama was very quick to sit there and try to get himself free of this hook that he's hooked onto.
Yeah.
But by her releasing that today, and he's going, no. And now she releases something with his signatures on it. It dawns on me that he just perjured himself. And so if she sits there, if you did it all at once, they have a chance to sit there and collectively get their stories together. But if you do it in cycles like this, they're not going to be able to group together and swim in unison. And somebody is going to end up, they're probably all going to end up burying themselves with this, trying to wiggle on the hook to get off. And, they're basically going to make it worse for themselves.
It's going to be interesting to see what the next step is. General Michael Flynn was on with Eric Bolling on his program, which is on Real America's Voice. And he said something which really caught me by surprise. He said, there's going to be another big drop. It's going to be mind-blowing. That's the term he used. And then he talked about it might torch Mike Pence. Listen to what he said.
Was Mike Pence possibly involved in this?
Yeah, and if you read, so and I lay this out in my book as well. Okay. Mike Pence, was he a dupe? Was he unwitting? Mike Pence was used, no doubt, because there's another piece of evidence that I'm waiting to see come out. And I've asked, and I basically demanded that it comes out. And we know this is a really critical piece of evidence. Sally Yates and Mary McCord, who was head of the National Security Division for the Department of Justice, Sally Yates was the acting attorney general, went over to the White House like 2 or 3 days prior to me having to be resigned and me being fired on the 13th of February, I think was the date. So Mike Pence, Reince Priebus are in the Situation Room in the White House, and Mary McCord, Andy McCabe is the other name, and Sally Yates was the third name that came and briefed Mike Pence on a document. And Mike Pence he had Reince Priebus call me up while they were all together. And he said, I just reviewed this document. The document shows that you talked about sanctions, something I never talked about ever. I never talked to Mike Pence about them. I never talked about them with anybody. Never talked to the Russian ambassador about sanctions. Mike Pence told me that he just saw a document where I discussed sanctions. So that document is either a lie or Mike Pence was lying. Somebody somewhere in between. What I believe is that Mike Pence, I believe that part of their effort was to try to figure out a way, because later on we now know from other cases that came out as well as mine that there was a 25th Amendment that was going to be put on the table further down the road. So this was an effort to get rid of Donald J. Trump. Now, somebody's going to have to ask Mike Pence. And I will tell you, Eric, not a big fan. Never was a fan. I would have served with him, no problem. And did. I was very honest with Mike Pence in the interactions that we had. So somebody's going to have to ask Mike Pence, because I have not heard from Mike Pence.
Well, I hope, and again, this is going to be likely a criminal referral from the DNI to the Department of Justice, which means investigation. It's a criminal referral, which means these mean they have teeth. When Congress talks about stuff, it doesn't really have a lot of teeth. When there's a criminal referral to the Department of Justice, they open up an investigation, and I pray, I haven't seen it, but I hope Mike Pence's name is on the list of folks they're going to talk to regarding all this.
They're going to have to question Mike Pence. They're going to have to question him about that meeting that I just talked to. And that meeting occurred on like the 11th or 12th of February of 2017. I know that meeting, occurred because he called me up. Reince Priebus called me up on behalf of him, said, I'm standing here with the vice president. I'm standing here with Annie McCabe, Sally Yates, and he mentioned one other, and I believe it was Mary McCord. And they had just read a document that was, to me, it must have been a complete fabrication. So somebody's not telling the truth. So those are individuals that are going to have to be brought in for questioning, and all this other stuff and I'm telling you, Eric, and I think that, maybe Tulsi said this yesterday, but I know that she's going to do another dump maybe today, but there's going to be another dump of declassified information this week that is just going to be mind-blowing.
Amazing stuff. I want to give people a little background. Mike Flynn, you say, well, didn't he go to jail and stuff? Mike Flynn has been a long-time respected intelligence person in D.C. Under Obama, he was the director of Defense Intelligence. He ran the Defense Intelligence Agency. That was Mike Flynn, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. This guy has got an impeccable record until he got into the favor of Donald Trump. And then when Trump was in office and he had a private meeting just before he was sworn in, Obama gave him a suggestion. He said, whatever you do, don't hire Mike Flynn. Because Mike Flynn had all the dirt on Barack Obama. He wanted to discredit Barack Obama. Mike Flynn went to jail because of, I don't know whether he went to jail. No, he did not go to jail. He was a gnat's hair away from going to jail if it weren't for somebody like Sidney Powell. Remember her, the lawyer? She did a magnificent job representing him, but he came very close. And then, of course, Trump gave him a pardon and got rid of all that legal nonsense. It was nonsense. It was stuff that was probably made up by the same people who put this whole plan together. They just didn't want Mike Flynn to be in the same room as the new president because they may talk. And if they talk, Flynn may say, well, Mr. President, here's the real backstory to what you're talking about, and the jig would be up. They did everything they could to hide this lie. And they thought, by the way, that if they classify all the stuff, if they take all the stuff that made the lie and classify it, no one will ever see it. They never thought that a new president like Trump would come along and declassify all that stuff. You can classify it, I can unclassify it, and that's what Trump did.
Yeah, and they don't want that.
No, they do not want that. So this is going to be an interesting time. I don't know how it's going to end. I would think if it's a fair country, it's going to end with justice. But there's going to be a lot of people on the other side who are going to try everything they can to make it look like it's nonsense. They're going to have every night on the news, on the mainstream news, they'll be out there, oh, that's ridiculous. Oh, what kind of fool would believe that story? They're going to do everything they can to minimize it.
Well, corruption has roots. It has tentacles. And right now, I see those tentacles going out in a lot of different directions, trying to squash things and do different things. Who is it? There was a Pam Bondi. Was it her? I'm looking through my notes on that.
What she did was, there was Elena Haba was the acting U.S. attorney in New Jersey and was doing a terrific job. She was doing a great job. Only problem is, there's a lot of liberal judges in that area who, they're liberal judges. They can't stand her, right? So they all got
rid of her.
Yeah, so they all voted to get her out of office. Don't want to have.
Who wanted them to do that? It was Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, there you go.
So it was at his behest. They did it. They tried to put in this girl, Desiree Lee Grace. So what did Pam Bondi do right away? As soon as she got appointed by them, she fired her.
Yep, exactly right. You can do whatever you want.
Game, I'll do this too.
Yeah,
Desiree, you might be a nice girl, but don't let it hit you on the butt on the way out.
We talked about this yesterday, but Obama's the only president who has never left Washington.
Mm-hmm.
He bought a house.
There's a reason for that.
He renovated it. We talked about the SCIF. And I wanted to, a lot of people really don't know what SCIF stands for. It stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. That's what a SCIF is. So if anybody asks you, Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. Not very glamorous, but that's the definition of a SCIF. So if anyone says, what's a SCIF? That's what it stands for. And he had one built in his house. Now, he's a private citizen. He's a former president, private citizen. I doubt that Bush has one. I doubt that any of the living former presidents have a SCIF. Now, I would not be surprised if Trump had a SCIF put in Mar-a-Lago. I would think he would need it down there because he's under such attack. Oh, and I wanted to tell you something interesting, Bill. This is something you probably won't hear on the mainstream news, but I did hear it in a back channel yesterday, and it makes sense. I think it was John Solomon who came up with this. He said, listen, there's some good news. You know how the Democrats always pick their judges for their cases? I mean, they always make sure that if they want a case to go nowhere in their favor, then they will get a sympathetic judge in Washington to hear the case. Well, the Democrats and the left made a big mistake. They raided Mar-a-Lago. You say, well, so what? Well, by going down to Florida and doing the raid in Florida, they made that part of the jurisdiction of the case. And Florida, the Southern District of Florida, is very sympathetic. It's a more conservative, legal environment. So there's good reason to believe that if they file these charges and they indict these people, they may have it heard in Florida, not in D.C., They may have it heard in a place outside of Washington. And, Obama and his team will probably say, well, it's not convenient for us and our witnesses and stuff.
So what?
Well, it's not supposed to be convenient. The other side of that story would be it's probably the perfect place to do it because you're not being influenced by Washington and the power players in Washington. So we're getting it out of that environment and putting it in a more neutral territory like Florida. But believe me, if you think they're sweating now, if they get it tried down there, these people they'll be using a lot of medication. So it's going to be, we talked about it before the show started, Bill, it's going to be a wild week. It really is.
Yeah. Letitia James in the news, you know that?
I did, but I want to ask you one more thing about Mike Pence. I always believed he was never really on Trump's side. I believe that he was somebody who was massaged into that position because Trump knew nobody, literally nobody in D.C., and he had to go with suggestions and recommendations. And this good Christian man from Indiana, Mike Pence,
a broadcaster,
a former broadcaster, who always to me sounded like he was what a big feeling. I never was impressed with the guy, but he would be a great vice president. I think Trump looked at him, probably interviewed him, and said he seems like a decent guy. Yeah, we'll go with him. I haven't got any better suggestions. But after having worked with the guy and getting to see how he really is, I think he realized his mistake. And I do think it probably he was planted there.
He should have listened to The Fly on TV. The fly was right when it came to
it landed on Hillary too.
Yeah. And I think both, I think Pence, Hillary, and I think even Obama it was probably the fly was trying to say, look. If it looks like, smells like, it is.
If only it could be a fly on the wall or their head.
Or their head.
So
the fly knew.
Where do you think it goes now, Bill? Do you think that it's going to be? I'm expecting sooner rather than later that Bondi's going to come out with some indictments.
Oh, I think so, and I think if it's not this week, the interesting thing is, Congress is leaving early.
Yeah,
and they're gone until September. Is that a good time to drop all these things or a bad time?
Well,
because they can't really do anything while they're on the break because they're at home working with their base, their constituents, getting ready for 2026, the midterms, and that's what they're really doing. They're gearing up for that, and so that may have something to do with, a lot of the stuff with the Epstein files. You're either going to see something happen right away before they leave town because they're leaving today, because they're gone tomorrow, and until September, whatever it is, probably the 5th.
I was under the impression they were leaving on the 6th of August, as opposed to the 7th. I think that they were. The reason why I say that is Thomas Massey was trying to get some Epstein thing passed, and it would have taken until the 7th for it to happen. And what's his name, Johnson, is releasing Congress on the 6th. So,
well, that could be. I could have the dates wrong because of the way the article read, but either way, they're trying to hurry up stuff.
Yeah.
But they are going to be leaving. And when they leave, nothing happens.
Well, I think it's going to happen soon, Bill. I think we're going to hear. See, there's two different directions we're going here. One is an investigation with Congress, which would, like you say, it would be stalled if they go away for their summer recess. These guys have more time off than you can, holy smokes. Can you imagine if you ran a radio station like that? The station would be silent half of the summer. But that's how they work. And so, but Congress aside, if the Justice Department says we're going to indict these people and bring federal charges against these people, that's a whole separate ball of wax. That leads them into the courtroom. And there'll be a lot of stuff flying. So it's like there's two fronts that they have to deal with. I'm talking about the left. They got to deal with the legal side of it and the legislative side.
Yeah, but the media is still, the left media is still the left media, and that's the legacy media that everybody calls to instead of saying the left, but that's what it is. They're going to sit there and take it, taint it, spin it. This weekend coming up, everything that Pam Bondi does or Tulsi does this week, the weekend they'll have their whole weekend to do the spin cycle and their little 20-minute loops and what is true is not true anymore, and what is not true becomes true.
That's true
on the weekends.
I'll tell you what's true, Bill. What's true is you can like and share our show.
Yeah.
You can like and share our show, and you can also contact us at mail@jimandbill.com, mail@jimandbill.com.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. So everybody was talking about, besides the situation with Obama, everybody also was talking yesterday about they got rid of the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. By the way, Bill, when have you ever seen somebody get fired and they tell you don't have to leave till next May? I mean, that is beyond, that's mind-blowing.
You know why? Because, next May, that gives him a lot of time to, maybe they find a way to recycle or rebuild their worth, and they'll say, well, we've had a change of heart. But B, he's a mouthpiece for the left.
Yeah, well,
and so they probably think, they need that mouthpiece in play.
Only problem is, see, they paid him $20 million to lose $40 million. That's the simplest way to explain it. He was being paid $20 million to lose $40 million. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a matter of politics, folks. It's the bean counters. I used to work in that company, and they are very money conscious. They always have been, even when I was there in ancient times. But I can't imagine they let him go this far to lose this much money for the corporation. But see, it's under new ownership, Bill. Paramount bought him, and Paramount's probably going, "Whoa, the Late Show lost us $40 million? What's the story there? Why can't we make money in that time slot?"
Well, they're not, because look, Colbert's a one-note samba, and America doesn't like the tune. And
that's true.
That's
I like
just
that.
The way it goes.
Very well said.
And I'll leave it at that. I mean, you look at Gutfeld. Now, he is a funny guy.
He is.
He is a funny guy above and beyond. But you know what tune he sings too, and he owns the nighttime. 3.1 million people.
Yeah.
And CBS, in all of its glory, with everything, has 1.9. 3.1, 1.9. That's a big disparity between the two. And again, the CBS needs to change their tune, because that one-note samba ain't flying.
You're talking about Gutfeld. Here's a little bit of what he was saying about the situation over at CBS. Listen.
So apparently firing Stephen Colbert, who was paid $20 million a year while his show lost $50 million, it wasn't due to economics. It was fascism. That, according to all the Democrats currently white knighting for him. Because you recall from history class, the first thing Adolf Hitler did was cancel Late Night with Shecky von Bismarck. But they never get that the free market means exactly that. Free to fire someone who's stinking up a market. Like they took a dump in the produce section. That show, his show, was like the dope who maxes out his credit card because he thinks the stripper really likes him. Ooh, you got 2 jokes for the price of 1. But that's not fascism, that's math. But for the left, math is what happens to other people. Which is why cretins like Chris Murphy are panicking like Hunter Biden when his dealer's phone goes right to voicemail. But are we on the precipice of entering a censorship state?
We are on the precipice of entering a censorship state in which Donald Trump is using the powers of the federal government in order to erase criticism from the airwaves. Stephen Colbert didn't get thrown off the air because he wasn't doing well.
Why's he doing that on the toilet? Dude, you're a politician and you're taking a dump while doing this? He's got to prove that he didn't. He's taking a dump. All right, so it's true. Colbert didn't cancel because he wasn't doing well. It was because he was doing horrendously. But even Rosie got the news between feeding times.
What's going on with Stephen Colbert, right? One of the most brilliant minds we've ever had in comedy. CBS decided to give in to the blackmail that Donald Trump forced them to.
Ugh. There's not enough Guinness in Dublin to turn her into a 3.
There's a lot of Guinness in Dublin. I've been there.
And others are ready to eulogize free speech.
If you don't think we are under a regime with an authoritarian strategy, then you are bugging. This is not just a media story. It's a free speech funeral in slow motion.
This has not been a great week for free speech and speaking truth to power.
A funeral? Please. A funeral would get more laughs. Colbert should have started his monologues with my condolences. But the left's political class kept piling on. Liz Warren, Adam Schiff, Tim Walz, Hakeem Jeffries. Jesus, I could feel my IQ plummeting just by listing those names. Thank God AOC wasn't in there or I would have flatlined. And now the Writers Guild of America wants an investigation into the cancellation. Somehow that killing a bad show is criminal. Hey, Writers Guild, you know what's criminal? Churning out garbage like The Big Bang Theory and How I Met Your Mother. They should have combined those two shows and called it How I Banged Your Mother. So why don't these elites freak out when working Americans lose their jobs? Non-federal workers who bring value to the economy, not dying institutions that bleed money serving their agenda. It's weird how they only take pride in things that are subsidized, crap that doesn't require actual success to survive. They think Colbert is a government program. Who cares if it costs a lot and it sucks? It made them feel good to know it was there. But don't you dare touch it, because that's fascism. Because to them, everything is fascist, except, actual fascism. Cuba, Venezuela, China, all the places where Tim Walz or Bernie Sanders consider great honeymoon spots. All those regimes crush dissent, jail opposition, and murder journalists. That's the fascism that these bags ignore. But a smug millionaire loses his desk and fake skyline, and it's the death of democracy. Hell, that desk costs more than my whole staff. And we still keep beating them in the ratings. The fact that CBS was losing millions but kept him on the air is the very definition of propaganda. When a business puts aside the bottom line for the message instead, well, you know what they say. If it walks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, but eats like an elephant, it's probably Joy Behar.
Let's welcome. That's a little bit of Gutfeld yesterday, day before yesterday, talking about Colbert, and it's amazing how the left, they make it sound like it was Trump's fault. Everything is Trump's fault, like Trump was in on the decision, and I don't think it was. I truly think it was the new owners looking at the bottom line and saying, "This guy is a turkey." He's making no money for the network. And by the way, in the audience the night before last on that show sat Fallon. Jimmy Fallon was in the audience. They shot in solidarity. Anderson Cooper was in solidarity. I mean, it was ridiculous to see these leftist, quote, supposedly entertainers and news people showing their support for Colbert. Colbert, with all due respect, and taking politics aside, he just wasn't funny. I mean, there is a guy, and I'll just use it as a point of reference, who I really didn't appreciate him so much when he was alive. He died way too young. His name was John Panette.
Oh, great guy.
John Panette, he was a heavy guy, born in Boston. He died. Yeah. He died very young. He died in like
50s.
He was 54, I think, or 53, and he died in Pittsburgh.
He was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. At the Sheridan in Pittsburgh.
Did a show, went back to his room, I believe, and
had an embolism.
Died naturally in his sleep or something.
Yeah. This guy was, if you want to see funny, stand-up funny, this guy was stand-up funny. If you had given him the Late Show with John Panette, it would have been phenomenal because he knew how to be funny and make people laugh. Yeah. And people say, well, it's Johnny Carson held that show for years, and his whole approach was you don't talk politics. People, when they're at that time of the night, people want to calm down, relax, they're getting ready for bed. They want to just be entertained.
You talk about things that people can relate to on a daily basis. Panette always thought, he had a problem with weight. So he would talk about that. He would talk about going on a cruise or things that were expensive at a hotel. And he's going, oh, the buffet.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
He says, the poker.
Yeah. He says, I lost a lot of money in the hotel in Vegas, but I made it up at the buffet.
Yeah. Now you got to lose, The all you can eat Chinese buffet.
Yep.
You go now.
Yeah, exactly.
You eat too much.
You leave, exactly. You gotta, if you haven't seen John Panette.
Yeah, you gotta look at it. Yeah,
he's on YouTube. Good. Just do a search on YouTube. John P-I-N, I think it's E-T-T-E, John Panette. He's hysterical. And God bless him. He's gotta be making God smile even as we speak. And it's a shame that he's gone. But, there are other guys out there right now who are still with us who are funny, who are similar to Panette, who...
Yeah, there was a guy that was a heavyweight like him, too, and I can't think of his name now. I can see him in my mind, but he was not as good, but pretty close. But again...
Anderson was his name? Was it,
no, you're thinking
Louis
of
Anderson? Louis
Andy. Well,
yeah.
he was another good one.
Yeah.
There's 4 or 5 of them out there. Louis was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Panay, I think, became my favorite over time, but Louis was funny.
Yeah.
And again, you know, he talked about things that life situations that everybody's dealt with.
Yeah, people can relate
whether
to.
It's, yeah, whether it's your weight, whether it's your hair, whether it's, you know.
He said, I've been dieting. You know, I'm a little heavy. He says in every audience, he says, I lost 100 pounds. People would say, oh, I can see it in your face. He says, how big was my head? I mean, the guy was hysterical. You really and truly
suck in your cheeks.
If you get a chance, do a search for John Pinette. But anyway, this is how late night should be, and the left is trying to make it like they've
relatables.
Lost. Yeah, this guy Colbert just never was funny. Yeah. Never. I mean, he didn't fill the bill. He was political. He was the political assault man at night. I don't know why somebody decided that late night should go political, but they all did. And the last guy to go in that direction on those main shows was Fallon. Fallon tried not to do it, but he saw the others going in that direction. Instead of being courageous and being independent, he decided, well, I think we should do the same thing. And now they're all sitting on the edge. This talk, by the way, that they're going to eliminate all of the late night shows. Meaning Fallon,
it could be the death knell.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that they were sitting in the audience like that in solidarity, I mean, come on. They
did it to themselves. It's a self-inflicted wound.
It sure is.
You know what? It's going on with Facebook right now and Instagram and even Twitter to a degree, where the left is taking to it because they can't post anything about their life or good stuff or funny things. It's all hate, you know, and I mean, it's sick, disgusting hate. And at some point in time, you're just going, you know what? Enough is enough. So what do I do about it? Turn it off. Forget about it.
What if I told you, if I had told you, even as recently as like 5 years ago, that Google might be irrelevant, you would have looked at me like I had two heads. But I was watching an interview, and one of the guys who's an expert said, with the advent of AI and how AI is working, it's going to make these search engines obsolete, because essentially you'll be able to say casually to your search engine, to your AI rather, hey, tell me what's on at 9 o'clock tonight. I didn't catch that. It'll give you everything you want to know, who's in it. It'll give you the whole background. It'll do it quicker than the search engines. I thought to myself, wow, search engines, Google being obsolete, but I guess in this modern world we live in, nothing is permanent any longer. And I was thinking, Bill, what comes after AI? We can't even imagine what's going to come down the road.
I have a joke, but I'm going to leave it alone.
Okay, it probably is best. If you want to leave it alone, that means you should leave it alone.
You're darn right I should leave it alone.
Hey, Tom Homan was on talking about Hunter Biden's remark. Hunter Biden, he came out
like an idiot.
The guy's got problems. I mean, I think he was stoned when he did the interview. Someone told me that was a 3-hour interview.
Yeah, but what he did is he gave up some information. Well, what was the drug that he talked about that they had to do to keep Biden away?
Ambien.
Yeah, which is
it puts you to sleep. It puts you to sleep.
But either way, it is a pretty high dose, medicine that has to be prescribed and is something that should be on his medical records.
I guess it wasn't.
The public should know about, which means, what else was...
Yeah, but why would you give Ambien? He said Ambien before the debate. Hey, Dad, they're going to give you Ambien so you can sleep
But he was confused. But apparently they were giving him things to jack him up, bring him down, probably to jack him up because he was down naturally. But they were giving him things that, and that's why they're all pleading the fifth.
You know what you didn't see?
What?
In the interview, and it was there, at one point, he starts to defend the usage of crack cocaine.
Yeah.
He starts talking about that. Yeah, he talks about how crack is actually better for you than alcohol and how easy it is to make. And you can go into the different stores like CVS and Walgreens and get some stuff off the shelf to help make your own crack. And he was actually talking about how to make crack.
Okay, number one, for education.
Yeah.
I lived in West Virginia, and it used to be you could go in the stores because it's not crack cocaine. That's basically, that crystal meth crap that you can do, that you use Coleman fuel, and they used to use ephedrine, then they were using...
we don't have to give...
we don't have to, but you used another medicine that used to be just on the shelf, now it's behind the counter, but you're using chemicals that are sulfuric acid, you're using liquid heat, which is for, keep your gas from freezing. You're using another chemical that I don't know, and you're using Coleman, the fuel, the fluid for your for your stoves, and stuff like that. And you're taking all this stuff and you're putting it in there and you're mixing it down, and there's some other things that they do. Those are healthy for you.
Well, they also, it's one of the reasons why so many of those meth labs blow up.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let me ask you this. I mean, somebody goes, well, there's cocaine. Used to be that farmers used to sit there. They'd go out in the cattle run. They'd keep their wives back in the late 1800s and who were sitting out in the prairie in the middle of nowhere at home, so that she'd have a little snuff thing of cocaine. So, she was, whatever. But either way, in modern day, what is it that they ether? What is ether?
It's a gas, essentially. It's a fluid. Yeah, it's a flammable.
Yeah, and that is what they use to cut coke with. And I'm sitting there going, these labs down in South America, that's what it is. So you might be getting something from the whatever plant it is that cocaine comes from, and I guess they found out the Indians used to chew it. I mean, Coca-Cola used to have it in it. It was a cough syrup. It was medicine. But either way, what the cartel is doing and how you're getting chemical that will sit there and burn up your nostrils, probably burn through the membrane of your nose, can sit there and rot.
Doesn't it rot your teeth?
Well, the crack cocaine. Now, remember, Hunter's got all caps there.
Yeah, implants
all the way around. They're perfect. But, in time, you don't think the sulfuric acid that's used to make that stuff and the Coleman fuel and whatever else is in there is not going to have an effect on those over time?
Of course. Absolutely. No, it's funny. He made a nasty remark about the border. He said, F you to anybody who wants safe streets and a secure border. And that set Tom Homan off in an interview yesterday.
And rightfully so.
Listen.
I don't really care what the former first drug addict thinks. I just thank God every morning I wake up, we got President Trump in the Oval Office. And because of President Trump, in 7 weeks, we got the most secure border in this nation's history. And now we're arresting public safety threats and national security threats every day across this country. We've already arrested 3 times the number of criminals that Biden did during the same time frame. And President Trump has committed 2 weeks ago to prioritize sanctuary cities. Because of what you just said, in California, Illinois, and New York, I said it during a press conference the other day, we're going to flood the zone. We're going to send hundreds of additional ICE agents to these cities. If they don't want to help us and get the bad guy in the county jail, then we're going to flood the neighborhoods until we find that guy. We're going to flood work sites until we find that guy, because we're going to make this country safe again. President Trump was elected for that purpose, and we're going to keep that promise from President Trump.
And Tom, those who would impede or harm or threaten ICE officers, will you commit tonight to
going to jail? going to jail, Laura. If you impede an ICE officer, you're going to be prosecuted. You throw a stone at an ICE vehicle, they're going to get out of the car, they're going to chase you down, they're going to arrest you, and you're going to be prosecuted. President Trump sent out a truth post and an X the other day. Zero tolerance. You step over the line, you'll be prosecuted. And Pam Bonnie's already talked to every U.S. attorney across this country. They're not going to decline the prosecution. So you step over the line, you're going to jail.
If I were an illegal, I would be concerned. And also, if I were the mayor of one of those sanctuary cities, I'd be concerned because he's announcing essentially that he's doubling down, which I think is pretty, it's long overdue. I think he's been very polite to these cities. People say, well, what do you mean polite? They send in the ICE agents and they're masked and they're basically kind of respectful, considering that they've had thousands of dollars of their cars damaged and destroyed by these, quote, peaceful protesters. So and now I guess the gloves are coming off, and you throw rocks at any of their cars this time, and they're going to stop the car and arrest you, period, plain and simple.
Hey, look, you deface government property. You deserve to get into lots and lots of trouble. So you throw in a rock at a car, puts a dent, scratches the paint, you're in trouble. You throw a brick at the glass, intent to break the glass and hurt the driver. Well, that's beyond just mischief there. So
and by the way, they are hurting the people. They're hurting the drivers, the ICE agents. These guys are going home with scratches and bruises, and in some cases breaks. So,
yeah, well, there's stories about immigrants, the illegal immigrants. I don't even like to say immigrants anymore. Illegals that are in the country that are doing acts of violence, killing people, shooting people, and they have more rights under the left rule than an American citizen, and that is just wrong.
That clown in California, that Senator Alex Padilla, the guy who tried to cause that scene at the press conference. Mm-hmm. Well, he was in a hearing yesterday. I haven't got the audio, but he says in one of the questions, "Do you think that all immigrants are illegal?" And the person said, all immigrants are illegal? You mean illegal? No, all immigrants are illegal, he said. And the person who was being questioned said, I think illegal immigrants are criminal. They're coming here illegally. They've broken the law to get here. He didn't want to hear that. He was trying to get a gotcha point. Yeah. Do you think illegals? These people on the left are beyond help.
Yeah, they want to twist what you say. It's wordplay, it's semantics, and it's BS. Semantics, no, it's just BS. You know what that stands for, and that is what the left is pushing all the time.
Bill, speaking of protests and responses, something big happened in the Ukraine yesterday. Did you hear about that?
Oh, was it a rally in favor of Zelensky?
No, it was a massive protest against Zelensky in the Ukraine.
Why would that be?
I guess people in the Ukraine are getting tired of his nonsense. He's closed down their churches. He has put off ending the war.
Are you telling me he's a dictator?
Well, Bill, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, odds are it's a duck. I'm just saying,
That's what the people are saying, and that's what they're protesting.
Yep. So I can't imagine that he's going to be in office much longer if you have the country against. And by the way, it was a large, enthusiastic, anti-Zelensky crowd.
Well, if I were him, I would maybe go back to playing the piano.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes, without using your hands.
Two things Trump is trying to do, just to mention real quick. He's floating the idea of lowering the capital gains tax, which they say would make the economy skyrocket if that happens, because people would be encouraged that are sitting on their properties going, I can't sell it, I got to pay that capital gain, blah, blah, blah. Don't want to sell it. Now all of a sudden they'd start selling these homes, and the prices would be at a cheaper selling point because the capital gains would be down. Now, that could be a good thing. And also, he's floating a 1% interest rate, trying to get the Fed to go to, which I don't think will ever happen. But if it did, could you imagine what would happen if we did that?
Wow. What is it, 4% now? And, there's no, this guy Powell is, they say it's not political, it's personal. That's why he's being a stick in the mud. I don't know. All I do know is he spent, $2 billion fixing up his roof on the Fed. I mean, they put a garden on top of the building. I don't know where his head's at, but boy, is that waste or what? When people start blowing that kind of money because you can, you have.
Did they want to have pretty flowers up there, or do a vegetable garden, have some tomatoes and maybe some chooks and stuff growing up there?
I have no idea what they're growing.
Salads?
They could be growing grass up there for a lot. I don't know. My question is, why do you need it in the first place? I mean, for gosh sakes, you finish your job, you don't hang around the roof, you go home. But I guess in D.C., it's the land of excess and graft and corruption, Anyway, I haven't got anything more to add other than it's going to be a crazy week and I think an interesting week, and I think you should pay attention.
Yeah.
Every day's going to have something. What do you got, Bill?
Well, no, I mean, I have a Letitia story. You can wait until tomorrow. It's just about her with a Standard Chartered Bank.
I thought that was interesting, Bill. I don't know what the story is with her. She apparently she's in trouble for what? Looking the other way for Iran?
I guess because Iran and China, they're circumventing sanctions via Notorious Bank, and Letitia James is implicated. So she's got to be looking the other way. Now in court is the U.S. Second Circuit, or in the U.S. Second Circuit Court, found at least $9.6 billion of illegal payments by the bank to Iranian and Hezbollah entities. And that's pretty much the story. And,
that's actually big. If she's involved with that,
she's involved with these by ignoring Treasury sanctions, designations, maximum pressure is, anyway, either way, she's pushed these things through and let them happen, and her name's all over it.
Well, I'm sure that if there's a story there, the left will probably do its best to bury it.
Well, it's just now breaking, so, it could be another distraction, though, because the important thing is, okay, the Epstein files, they're out there, but Obama is the big thing. But could she be the person that gets thrown under the bus to distract from Obama?
I don't think that'll work. I think Obama's just too big. See, even the left to think that by ignoring it, it'll go away. It's not going to go away. When you have Trump doing what he did yesterday, Trump literally grabbed hold of the news cycle by himself in the Oval Office, and by talking for 7 minutes and saying what he said, you can't ignore it. You cannot go away. And if he keeps doing stuff like that, then they're going to have to follow up.
Trump knows how to command the stage, and he knows how to, build publicity. And one of the things that he's doing, you might, he's crazy. Look, he's out doing this, he's out doing that. What are you doing when you say he's out doing this, he's out doing that? You're talking about him.
Yeah.
He's in the news cycle. Bad news, good news, it's all news, and it keeps your name on as top of mind. And you can build a mountain of negativity and then put a nice, big cherry on top and some nice whipped cream, and all of a sudden you got a sundae there that's good. And that's all it's about, is just getting that name brand awareness and attention, and then he can spin it.
Well, like I said, I think we'll see more stuff today because it's promised. Tulsi's going to release some more stuff. And they say the stuff that's going to come out today is going to be even more damning than the stuff that came out originally. So on Friday. So stay tuned, folks. We'll talk about it tomorrow for sure. Sir, I'm all done. I haven't got any more for now, but hang on.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm in the same boat. We'll put this This cake mix back on the shelf, and we'll come back tomorrow and do it again. So until then, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. This is CRN America.